Hello there. Welcome in. Glad to have you. Hopefully, your weekend was spectacular and ready for another week. And boy, today really picked up, didn't it, this afternoon with some of the moves made in the National Football League. I will get to those. Those will be a big topic of conversation. Speaking of which, there will be a veritable cornucopia of sports topics coming your way over the course of the program, and I'd love to get your thoughts at 719-247-1313. You could call or text into the show that way, or if you're watching the show, the live stream of the show, anywhere you scroll, you could drop a comment right there. We really had some great conversation at the end of last week, and I'm hoping the momentum carries through the weekend and into today. As I said, I will get to the NFL, the two trades that went down, both blockbuster in nature. Myles Garrett going to the Rams, if you haven't heard, and A.J. Brown finally will be on his way to New England. But I want to start with one of my big takeaways from this weekend, as now we have both the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup Final both set. There are, a lot of truisms, I suppose, is the way I would describe it in sports that just aren't true this year. The ideas that we take for granted, of course, this is the way it is. Of course, this is the natural order of things. May not be the case. That natural order has been disrupted. And you look, one of my favorite ones that I've held on to. Like this is an epiphany for me. This isn't me scolding anybody. This is what I have realized. One of the axioms that I always go back to, kind of that idea, there's no substitute for experience, right? You just can't show up and win a championship. You got to build up that scar tissue. You got to take a step forward and get knocked out and experience that heartbreak and all that kind of stuff in order to, harden yourself and against playoff sports and to make you more worthy of being a champion in some way, shape, or form. Well, tell that to the San Antonio Spurs, who just ran a gauntlet. Okay, one thing I do not want to hear, I know I will, but I'm just preemptive strike. I don't want to hear how easy in retrospect the Spurs' path to an NBA Finals was. Okay, we're not doing this again. People are still doing it to the Denver Nuggets. We're not doing this. It was a gauntlet they had to go through, and they are absolutely worthy of representing the Western Conference as that conference's champions. But the Spurs, for all intents and purposes, just got here. They weren't very good as recently as 1 year ago. And here they are playing in the NBA Finals. Tell that to the New England Patriots. Back-to-back 4-win seasons. And they end up in the Super Bowl. Another one that's been kind of turned on its head recently. When is or is not the right time to fire a head coach? Right? With the Knicks, it was, how can you fire Tom Thibodeau? You just went to the Eastern Conference Finals. You're putting Mike Brown in an unwinnable situation because the only thing he could do that would be viewed as a success is him taking one step further. That's impossible. Can't put that on Mike Brown. The Knicks are in the NBA Finals. Oh, it would bring too much chaos into your organization to fire a coach with 8 games left in the regular season, especially one like Bruce Cassidy, who won a Stanley Cup. Doesn't this sound familiar, given our conversation last week? Oh, who are you going to find that's better than Bruce Cassidy? Guy won a Stanley Cup. Well, John Tortorella is getting ready to coach the Vegas Golden Knights in the Stanley Cup Final. And it goes beyond that, right? A basketball school in Indiana won a national championship in football. Michigan imported 4 of their 5 starters out of the transfer portal. In 1 year, they built a national champion out of nothing. It's the ideas that we have long held to be true, but also the timelines when we expect things to happen. For a team like San Antonio to make an NBA Finals, it's next year. Right? Too young. Yeah, wait a year. They go through it, experience heartbreak at some point, then they'll come back better for it, and then you can jump on the Spurs bandwagon for the 2026-2027 year. But the Patriots, a lot of people like Drake May. A lot of people like the hiring of Mike Vrabel, but 4 wins to being AFC champions? How about Seattle? That ended up winning the Super Bowl. Oh, Mike McDonald, brilliant guy, good young coach. It's going to take him a little bit. He's got to learn how to be an NFL head coach. Mitch Johnson, the same with the Spurs. He's got to learn to be an NBA head coach in the postseason. No, he doesn't. At least that's what we're seeing. And look, it's not just one reason. It never is just one reason why this is all happening. But one thing I'll put at the very top of the list, uncommon talent. Right? Why are the Spurs in the NBA Finals? A lot of reasons. First and foremost, Victor Wembanyama. A 7-foot, he might be 8 feet tall. We don't know. But he's an alien. That's why the Spurs can be in the NBA Finals sooner than anyone could have possibly thought they would be there. Why did Indiana win a national championship? Fernando Mendoza, Heisman Trophy winner, special talent, number 1 pick in the draft. How'd the Patriots do it? Drake May played at an MVP level. Dusty May brought in big-time players to make Michigan national champions. If you have the right player and a special player at the right position, this can happen. What you're seeing. You could be ahead of schedule. But it does also have to be the right coach. Just because coaches are hired to be fired doesn't mean that position doesn't mean something. That who you have in that chair matters. It still matters. And it doesn't, I want to stress this, given the conversations that we had all of last week, it doesn't mean you have to have the best coach or the best resume for a coach. Right can have a lot of different meanings to it. It could be accomplishment. It could be what they have achieved in the past, or just could be the right temperament or the right guy for the right moment. And I don't think you look at a lot of these coaches that have been playing for championships recently and say that they're the best. I mean, I think you could make the argument that Kirk Cignetti is truly the best coach in college football. But like Mike Brown, I don't know if you say truly that he is a better coach than Tom Thibodeau. Is Mitch Johnson one of the 3 to 5 best coaches in the NBA? Is Mike McDonald? Is Mike Vrabel? So it doesn't always just have to be, oh, this guy's the best coach. or even that this guy is on paper better than the guy that we had before. But something about him has to be right for this moment. And Mike Brown is for the New York Knicks. Mitch Johnson is for the Spurs. Mike Vrabel was for the Patriots. Mike McDonald was for the Seattle Seahawks. John Tortorella is the right guy for right now for the Vegas Golden Knights. So that's what matters. And I'm going to bring it back to the Colorado Avalanche in the debate of whether this team is going to keep Jared Bednar as the head coach. It's not about who can you get that has more playoff wins than Jared Bednar or more Stanley Cups than Jared Bednar. That's not the question here. It's about temperament. It's about the spark that you can light with a team by making a coaching change. That's what my argument was all last week about the idea of replacing Jared Bednar. It wasn't because I think that there's unequivocally a more qualified and a more accomplished head coach than Jared Bednar. I mean, unless you're going to get John Cooper out of Tampa Bay, there's probably not one. But is that the be-all, end-all? Because one common theme with all of these teams that I've talked about, they don't leave well enough alone. They don't say because it's worked in the past, it's going to work now. Like, there's a time where something that has worked does not work anymore. And that applies to your roster, but that applies to your head coach as well. Now, some of these decisions that we are seeing from the Knicks, the Golden Knights, it doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody. Right? If there was one true way to win a title, tried and true, without fail, everybody would do it. There are a lot of very smart people in every league in North America. Like, if there was a way that had been proven to be the way to go, everybody would follow it. The Denver Nuggets famously didn't skip steps. And it worked, right? They won a title. So I don't know if this is the new way of the world and if every team should jump on board. But right now, some teams that have made some bold decisions and have incurred some risk with the decisions they made, it seems like it's paying off. But again, it goes back to the talent that you have at the most important spots. Right? We could take it on a case-by-case basis. The reason why the San Antonio Spurs are playing beyond their years is because their superstar is wise beyond his years, has a maturation about him and a mentality about him that is uncommon for someone his age. And so Dylan Harper and Steph Castle and all these younger guys who haven't won anything at the NBA level follow him, subscribe to the same things, and now everyone on the San Antonio Spurs is suddenly playing at a level higher than you would think that they would be able to at this point in their franchise arc. But it is a good time to be a risk taker if you are in charge of a professional sports organization or even a collegiate one. Fortune is favoring the bold right now. And I think at the very least, there are a lot of teams around the leagues, NBA, NHL, NFL, that are going, okay, well, we didn't want to upset the apple cart. Because here's the other thing. If you take a swing and you miss, what if the Knicks regressed under Mike Brown? Somebody's got to be losing their job, right? You had Tom Thibodeau. You made it to an Eastern Conference Finals. You fire him, and you bring in Mike Brown, and it gets worse. I don't know Kelly McCrimmon's status. I mean, I feel like he's done a lot in his tenure as Vegas general manager to, not be fired on the spot, but it could go poorly. And for a fan base that expects nothing other than winning, if Vegas got worse with Bruce Cassidy gone, there'd be a lot of heat on Kelly McCrimmon. And I think that's part of the reason why we don't see more people in management across the four major sports and college football take these kind of risks, because that's what gets you fired. Making a big bet and being wrong, staying the course, doing what is reasonable to most people. You got to kind of be able to sell what you're doing. And a lot of general managers don't want to risk that. Slow and steady doesn't, they'll say it wins the race, but slow and steady gives you better job security than if you make one of these big swings that some of these teams have done. I wonder if we see more of this, or I wonder what the next team is that will do something that will go, whoa. Either a decision that they make, or is there a team, especially in the NBA, who's the next Spurs? Who's the next young team that's going to not just break through and have a really good season like Houston did a couple years ago and have a bunch of wins, but like break through and go to an NBA Finals? This idea that you got to wait your turn, that you have to follow a certain blueprint and over time it's going to work. It's kind of being turned on its head a little bit right now. And I wonder if other organizations, especially ones here in the state of Colorado, decide to follow suit. 719-247-1313. Your thoughts on, man, we got a lot on the table today. We have a Stanley Cup final set. We have an NBA final set. We have two huge trades in the NFL. And I'd love to get your thoughts on all of them. Drive Time Sports continues next on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. He's got ties. He's got socks. Give him a gift that really rocks. $5,000. Head to extrasports1300.com or kvor.com, either one, to enter this national contest for a chance at $5,000 for your top pop. It's called the Top Pop Contest because, Father's Day and all. It's sponsored locally by Papa Murphy's Pizza. We make it. You bake it. So, fun story. So, producer Ray, who you've heard on the show over the last few weeks, not so much lately because he is out of the country on his honeymoon. Congratulations to him and his lovely bride. Haven't heard from him since he left. Nothing. I think one text about Spider Noir started today, the day he left, and then radio silence. I've heard nothing from Ray. Doesn't even bother to check in on me and see if I'm handling everything with this show okay now that I'm all by myself. But these two NFL trades today have brought him out of the woodwork. Myles Garrett going to the Rams and A.J. Brown going to the New England Patriots. The Myles Garrett news, let's just talk about that for a moment. We'll get to the A.J. Brown thing because Tom is champing at the bit. He's loving what's going on with the Patriots, as he should. The Myles Garrett news, when I saw it today, not to make light of this, but I almost died. I almost choked when I saw the headline that Myles Garrett had been traded to the LA Rams. This is crazy. And this is, I actually find the A.J. Brown trade to be more intriguing because what can you say about the Rams? Legitimately, you say they were already the Super Bowl favorites, and then they got Myles Garrett. So, yes, they are more prohibitive favorites to win the Super Bowl. I mean, I guess what you can say for the LA Rams is if this doesn't work, if they don't, because this is a team, remember, the last 2 years has lost to the eventual Super Bowl champion. So there's an argument to be made that the second best team in the NFL each of the last 2 seasons has been the LA Rams. It was the Eagles 2 years ago, the Seahawks now. The Rams lost to both of them. So this is a move to ensure that, hey, we're going to be the Super Bowl champions. We're tired of losing to the eventual Super Bowl champions. That we know that we're on the field with Philadelphia. We're on the field with Seattle. We know that we can match up with them. We're just missing something, missing a little bit to push us over the top. And then they go out and get the defensive player of the freaking year. And for an organization that had Aaron Donald, they now get the closest thing we have to Aaron Donald in the league today in Myles Garrett. So for the Rams, this is, Super Bowl or bust times 10. How in the world can a healthy Rams team not win the Super Bowl with the MVP and the Defensive Player of the Year on the same team? And a team that, again, arguably could have been the second best team in the NFL each of the last 2 seasons. This is pushing all the chips to the middle. Now, Myles Garrett will stick around past Matthew Stafford. But right now, you have Stafford on the 1-year extension. You have Myles Garrett coming in. Like, this is it. What the Rams look like with Ty Simpson moving forward, that's a discussion for another day. Which, by the way, if you like Ty Simpson to a degree, or you like Ty Simpson with Sean McVay, which is kind of where I go. Like, I don't love Ty Simpson, but I love Sean McVay when he gets his hand on a quarterback. So I guess I kind of like Ty Simpson in LA. But we don't know what that's going to be. Are the Rams going to extend their championship window the next 5 years beyond this one with Ty Simpson as a quarterback? There's no guarantee. But their ability to take the one relatively high draft pick that they've had in years and secure who they might think is the quarterback of the future and get that piece of future business done while still being able to maximize this window with Matthew Stafford by getting Myles Garrett. It just, Les Snead, man. That guy might be one of the best at what he does. Howie Roseman's on that list. I think John Schneider, given what he's done with 2 iterations of the Seattle Seahawks, you got to give him a lot of credit, but Les Snead's way up there. So this is, barring injury, like the Rams have to win, right? They have to win a Super Bowl. And by the way, the Super Bowl is going to be in their building. So the anticipation in that part of the country for this season is going to be crazy. But again, the Rams were already, I think, on paper, the favorites. This upcoming, I think in Vegas they were. So I think the A.J. Brown thing, just because of how much more muddled the picture is in the AFC, is actually the more intriguing addition, or I'll say intriguing addition, although, I mean, Myles Garrett on the Rams, that's just crazy. That's like a trade you pull off in Madden. Like, that doesn't, hey, buddy, come here. Look who I was able to trade in franchise mode. I got Myles Garrett on the LA Rams. And I'm not even saying it's a bad return for Cleveland. Jared Verse might be, he fits their timeline a little bit better. And they get a first-round pick, which isn't going to be very high, but you're Cleveland. You need as many premium draft picks as you can get. So I don't think the Browns made out poorly by any stretch. But I also don't think, I saw this question posed, there is no way that the Rams overpay for Myles Garrett. Are you kidding me? Like, why would you even ask that? But the A.J. Brown trade is more interesting because it makes you, as we will do later on, discuss whether New England now becomes the favorite to once again get out of the AFC, where that was in question. Already 100 days out from the NFL season today, before the Myles Garrett news, I probably would have told you I would take the Rams. With another year of Stafford and Jared Verse. I like them with Jared Verse. So it takes the Rams from the favorite to now an overwhelming favorite to almost, how can this not end up with the Rams essentially hosting the Super Bowl? Take your thoughts on Myles Garrett, 719-247-1313. One other thing I will interject here, because you may be focused on the hockey and basketball team that makes up the Kroenke Sports empire. Look at what's going on with a couple of their other entities. Okay, Arsenal just won a Premier League title. They botched the Champions League final over the weekend, but still they got there. Rams are doing this. It's just a reminder because Stan Kroenke is a little enigmatic. I still think that there are a lot of people trying to figure out what his ethos is, what motivates him, what compels him to, give the thumbs up that Josh can do whatever, or the guy that's general managing the team can do whatever he wants. And when he's going to intercede and say, no, you can't do this. One thing that I have found that is pretty much true and been pretty much true for a very long time since the Kroenkes have owned Arsenal, the Rams, the Avalanche, and the Denver Nuggets. If Stan Kroenke sees a championship team, or maybe a team capable of winning a championship if they just get this, if he sees a team that is close, he will give, or he will allow the people that are in charge of those organizations to do whatever they see fit. No edicts from above. You got to cut payroll. You can't sacrifice our draft capital. If he sees that a team in his empire is close to winning a title, those organizations have carte blanche to do whatever they want. And Les Snead just has happened to have carte blanche for about 5 years now. And the reason I bring this up is because of the off seasons that are coming up for the Avalanche and the Denver Nuggets. And the natural inclination is push. The Avs got to add this and add that, and the Nuggets need to add. They don't need to subtract. And the feeling is the Avs, I think, will be as close to run it back as you could possibly be, whereas the Denver Nuggets, I think that they're only subtracting from their team. If Stan Kroenke felt like the Denver Nuggets were close to winning a title, I think he would empower Josh and the two-headed front office of the Denver Nuggets to do what they need to do, a.k.a. stay in the tax. I think that's what you could say about the way that Stan Kroenke runs his sports enterprise. If you can convince him, or he sees that you are close to winning a title, he will put his vast fortune behind you. If he doesn't think that you're close, or you can't convince him that you are, then that's when we get the conversations or the rumors that are coming out of the Nuggets organization that Peyton Watson's just going to leave, and they're probably going to trade Cam Johnson, and Hardaway's gone, and Valanciunas is gone. Not a lot of adding going on with the Denver Nuggets right now. Not a lot of adding conversation. I think that is in part an indicator that maybe Josh and Stan look at the Nuggets and say, we're not close. Because teams that are close get to go get Myles Garrett. 719-24-7. 1313. Your thoughts on the Myles Garrett trade to the LA Rams, the first-round pick, and Jared Verse reportedly going to Cleveland. Either side of the trade that you want to discuss, I'm more than open to it. We'll get more into the A.J. Brown going to New England. The obvious question, I think, I'll let you ponder this, better move, Patriots adding A.J. Brown or the Broncos adding Jalen Waddle? Drive Time Sports continuing next. The United States Space Force and PBR are uniting for a landmark America 250 celebration. It's PBR Space Cowboys presented by the U.S. Space Force. It will bring together elite team bull riding and a live concert by Grammy award-winning superstar Tim McGraw, as well as multi-platinum country star Chris Jansen. It'll all be at Falcon Stadium on June 20th. We have a link for you to get tickets on the front page of both extrasports1300.com and kvor.com. I looked today at the USL Championship Golden Boot race, the league leaders in goals, and I see Ricky Ruban of El Paso with 8. I see Sacco of Phoenix have 8. And I see Corey Bennett of the Switchbacks have 7. Clearly, the league still has not rectified what happened on Saturday. So if you missed it, 5th minute, Yosuke Hanya plays a great ball into the box. Corey Bennett puts it into the back of the net it looked like it went off of his heel and into the net, which is a phenomenal shot from a phenomenal goal scorer. 1-0 Switchbacks. Roland and I continue on with the broadcast, and then all of a sudden I look over at the official stats, and I see a red ball by Michael Edwards, and that means an own goal. How could this be? And I have looked at the goal by Corey Bennett over and over and over again, as a Pruder film. Stop, back up, go forward. How is that an own goal on Michael Edwards? And I think somebody that would agree with me is Michael Edwards. You know, I mentioned this during the broadcast on Saturday. We see this in baseball a lot. Some of this has come up with Nikola Jokic, right? The hometown friendly official stat taker, right? If there's a questionable play by the second baseman, if he's at home, it's more likely going to be ruled like an infield single rather than an error to kind of protect him. That can happen every once in a while. It's not pervasive, but it can happen every once in a while. So if this was a case of, a friendly hometown stat keeper, why is Oakland getting charged with an own goal, which is kind of a scarlet letter? It's not a good thing. I don't understand it, and it's still being ruled an own goal. And you might say, well, Ryan, what's the big deal? If by the end of the season, Corey Bennett misses out on becoming the second Golden Boot winner in Switchbacks history by a goal, I'm not even going to speak to start the show, so you'll have to watch it on the live stream. I'm just going to stare into the camera for like 10 minutes straight, because that one goal made the difference. That should have been a goal. It makes it. I have not found. I looked through the rule book. I've watched the replay numerous times. And even the Switchbacks write up after the game said Corey Bennett's goal. They described it as a Corey Bennett goal. Like, there aren't that many of them on a week-to-week basis. If you're new to the game of soccer, a lot of matches end 1-0, 2-1. Okay? It's the one stat that I really think you need to make sure you get right. Possession, passing accuracy, I don't care nearly as much. You want to tip the scales the other way, I'm not saying it's right, but I'm not going to care as much about it. Who scores the goals matters a lot. And also, I don't think that former member of the Switchbacks, Michael Edwards, would very much like to be charged with an own goal that he did not deserve to take. That went off of Corey Bennett's back of his foot into the goal. Corey Bennett should have 8, and it should be a 3-way tie atop the league in goals. And there is a trophy given away at the end of the year for the guy who has the most goals. This stuff matters. So I don't know what the statute of limitations is here. I don't know if the Switchbacks have formally protested this and are trying to get it changed. I'm going to find that out later this week, but it needs to be changed. Corey Bennett should have 8 goals, and we should be talking about Corey Bennett scoring the lone goal in a big 1-0 win for Colorado Springs Switchbacks FC, which, despite the egregious error in scoring, it is a big win for the Switchbacks. You know, they've played a lot of different competitions over the course of the season, right? And they've been mostly unbeaten through all told. When you take the Open Cup and the USL Cup and the USL Championship, the Switchbacks have gotten positive results more than they have gotten negative ones. Okay, but it always seems like the full 3 points, the wins seem to be confined for much of this early season with the USL Cup and the US Open Cup. And at the end of the day, the biggest prize is winning the league. So the Switchbacks needed to start getting 3 points out of some of these matches. 1 point wasn't doing it because they were still, 8, 9, 10 in the standings, because that alone, just being barely over the cut line, isn't going to be good enough for Alan McCann's team. They want to be near the top of the table. So it was big for them to get 3 points against any team. Bigger to get 3 points against Oakland, who is off to a terrific start to the season. And now these two teams, one's in 3rd, one's in 8th, are separated by essentially 1 win. That's the other thing, too. The perspective gets a little lost when the Switchbacks lose to Vegas or get a draw the week before. You look at where they're at in the standings and you go, oh, they're, flirting with that cut line. But then they get a win and you start to look up the table and you're like, oh, wait a minute. They're right there. Everything is still so packed tightly together as we open the month of June. Still all in front of the Switchbacks, and I wasn't thinking that it wasn't at this point, but just the perspective that changes when your team wins, and then you're more apt to kind of look at the standings than if they lose or draw. You're like, I don't know that I really want to look at the standings at this point. But that's a big win against a really good team, and I know already, before I even talk to Alan McCann this week, what he's going to say, the clean sheet. That's what he's going to point to. He's going to say that's the most important thing. That's what they're striving for. And to do it without even allowing a shot on goal. Colin Shuttler picked up the clean sheet. He deserved it, right? He's deserved a clean sheet because he's been kind of hard done by in a lot of his starts this year. So he deserves to have a clean sheet by his name if you watch him play. But that one in particular, he didn't have to make a save. That's how good the Switchbacks were defensively against an Oakland team, mind you, that had the reigning Golden Boot winner. Here's a Golden Boot mention again. Peter Wilson won the award a year ago as the best goal scorer in the league. And he and Wolfgang Prentice are maybe the most dynamic duo attacking for any team in the league. And the Switchbacks didn't allow either one of them or anybody else on Oakland, for that matter, to even test Colin Shuttler. So that was the start of that match looked very similar to the start in Vegas, except they got the goal, which was everything, because I thought they bossed the play against Vegas, and then they just kind of had that one breakdown. Vegas scores, and in soccer, who scores first, it matters a lot, especially when it's late or early in a half. Completely shifts momentum, sets a tone. And I would say there are more similarities in what the Switchbacks did between Oakland and Vegas, even though one was a win and one was a loss, than maybe it would seem looking at the score. But that goal makes all the difference. And the Switchbacks were able to shut it down the rest of the way, or shut Oakland down the rest of the way and get a big 3 points. And now, speaking of the standings, they have a stretch here. This weekend's the USL Cup. So chance to get through the group stage with the win against El Paso Saturday. But then you have Sacramento at home. You go to Tulsa. You're home against San Antonio, and you're home against Phoenix. This is a month that the Switchbacks can make a move, a big move, with so many games at Widener Field over the next month. But in the meantime, two things. Great win by the Switchbacks, USL Championship. That is a Corey Bennett goal. That is not an own goal. Somebody needs to change that. Coming up next, bigger move. Brown to the Patriots or Waddle to the Broncos? Welcome in. Great to have you. Shouts to you guys watching the show on social media. Anywhere you scroll, really. Facebook, X, Instagram, Twitch, YouTube. We're there in all of those places. And while you're in said places, if you don't mind liking, subscribing, following, that'd be awesome. Some personal news. Speaking of social media, I am now happy to report that it's okay to be following me on Twitter again at Gingerly Tweets because I did get hacked. I am not a crypto bro. And I worked personally with Elon Musk to rectify the situation, and it has been rectified. So thank you to him. I don't know. I may be done with that platform anyway, but we'll see. You just want to sprinkle that in. While you are on social media, by the way, you can always drop a comment and be a part of the conversation that way. If you are listening to the show and prefer to text or call in, I'm here for that as well. 719-24-7. 1313 is the number to do that. So Myles Garrett getting traded to the LA Rams is, of course, the biggest story of the day. Biggest name, most shocking. The other trade that happened today, less shocking. In fact, we knew it was going to happen at some point. But now that it's actually come to fruition, I think it brings up a very interesting conversation. A.J. Brown going from the Eagles to the Patriots. And now you have the two teams that met for the AFC Championship this year who have both landed a piece that they were desperate to get. Both were devoid of a true number one wide receiver. Both have young quarterbacks that they need to get right, or they need to know if they got it right. And you can't have Drake May and Bo Nix throwing to the guys they've been throwing to year in and year out and be able to truly decide whether they are worth, I don't know, by the time they get paid, maybe it will be like $750 million. Who knows where quarterback contracts will be in just a year, basically, because they can start negotiating after this season, I believe. But the point is, if you don't get them an elite receiving weapon, then can you really know for sure whether they're the guy to lead you to a Super Bowl title? And a guy that can not just lead you to one, but have you repeatedly in the conversation. Because there is a non-zero chance that New England and Denver do not get as close as they got to winning a Super Bowl this coming year or for a number of years. I think it's unlikely, but it's possible. So I think both with A.J. Brown and Jalen Waddle, you are a little bit more regression proof, because I think you look at New England and you look at Denver and you say these are two teams that are primed to regress, right? Broncos, well, both of them with, I think, maybe more so New England than Denver, overachieved from what people thought they would be this past season, but still both quarterbacks are young. We expect more growing pains from both of them. Especially with the Broncos, the number of one score games, New England with how, let's say, less than challenging their schedule was for much of the season. I think there are a lot of reasons to look at both Denver and New England and say they're two teams that are going to take a step back, because there are always going to be teams, because you got to make room for the new teams. There are going to be multiple teams at the top who are going to come down, and there are multiple teams at the bottom who are going to come up. It's the way of the world in the NFL. And as we start trying to figure out who those teams are, I think New England and Denver would be two prime candidates. But when you improve your roster in, I think, as dramatic a way as both of them did, both of these guys change everything about the Patriots and the Broncos offense. And what I said about Jalen Waddle when he was acquired by the Broncos, I could copy and paste to A.J. Brown and the New England Patriots. You get a number one guy, because that's a role. Who's the number one wide receiver? And I'm not talking necessarily in just targets or touches or whatever, but like, if I need to complete a pass here, red zone, third down, whatever the case may be, I need to complete a pass here. Who am I trusting the most? And is that person capable of reciprocating that trust? I think for both Bo Nix and Drake May, the latter part of that was never a guarantee. I think both players do deserve credit for being able to play as well as they did without a reliable every down receiver. And Jalen Waddle, what he does for the Broncos is he's the number one guy. Now Courtland Sutton, arguably the best number two receiver in the NFL, but was never a one. But now he's a number two. And he's going to be terrific in that spot. And then Marvin Mims can still be the gadget player, and you can figure out with all these, the Pat Bryants and the Troy Franklins, do we have a guy here? Does one of them emerge? I mean, it puts everything in its place. Same can be said for A.J. Brown. Now you got the number one guy. Now everyone else can slot in where it's more appropriate for them to slot in and can be relied upon correctly. So I see so many similarities between these two. I think it can really come down to taste. Which type of receiver do you like a little bit more and what fits both of these teams? I just feel like what Jalen Waddle brings to the Denver Broncos, I just think in every way he is perfect for them. The separation downfield that you really only get from Marvin Mims, but you can't use him all the time. They desperately need that, and Jalen Waddle does that. Plus, he fits what they do, or at least what we think they will do. Now, Davis Webb's going to be the offensive play caller now, so I would expect some different here. But it's still a lot of Sean Payton principles. It's still a lot of Sean Payton ideas. And a guy that can make something happen by catching it close to the line of scrimmage and turning upfield is also something that fits in so well. So it's really, it's really 6 one way, half dozen the other, because I could say what the dynamics that A.J. Brown brings to the table are exactly what New England needs as well. I just look at the fit with Jalen Waddle, and I think it's a little bit more perfect, if that's a possible thing for something to be more perfect. But they both provide a lot of the same things. They both can give you hope and maybe more than hope. Maybe it's more than hope, like real belief, grounded in reality, that these two teams can maybe go further than they did a year ago, rather than regress. So while we knew A.J. Brown was going to the New England Patriots for a while, still a huge move for the New England Patriots. And it's interesting in the AFC. I said this about Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett has taken, in my opinion, the favorite to win the Super Bowl next year and made them more prohibitive favorites. with the Waddle and A.J. Brown additions, it's a much more muddled picture in the AFC because you have the Patriots adding a bona fide number one wide receiver. The Broncos add a bona fide number one wide receiver, but they also have to contend with, Joe Burrow coming back. What the bounce back for Kansas City is going to be. We'll have many discussions over the next 100 days till we get to the NFL season, but they're going to be better than they were a year ago. I mean, you have to know that. The Bills are the Bills. I love the hire of Jesse Minter for the Baltimore Ravens. Going back to the opening segment today, talking about how maybe it's not about getting a better coach on paper, a better resume. It's just about getting the right coach for what your team needs. And I think in Baltimore, that's exactly what they've done. There's no doubt John Harbaugh, through the course of his career, is a better coach than Jesse Minter. We don't even fully know what Jesse Minter is going to be as a head coach. But I think he's the right guy with the relationship with Lamar, with Baltimore having a lot of talent on the defensive side, but for some reason they can't put it all together. I just think Jesse Minter is the perfect guy for right now with Baltimore. So I think Baltimore has a chance to be better. Joe Burrow healthy, and now he doesn't have Myles Garrett sacking him anymore. I'll tell you, the people who are the happiest today are not Rams fans that Myles Garrett is a LA Ram. It's Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, especially Joe Burrow. So you have the traditional powers, Buffalo, Kansas City, Baltimore, that are all still around, or you expect to be better than they were a year ago. You have Cincinnati, which we've seen what they are fully capable of, and it's going to a Super Bowl. But can they keep Joe Burrow healthy? That question is always out there. And then you have these other two teams that were able to take advantage of Cincinnati, Buffalo, Kansas City, and Baltimore all being down to a degree. They took advantage, but now they have a chance to stay there, to battle those teams. Whereas before, you thought, with those teams coming back up, Broncos going to take a step back, New England's going to take a step back, and the traditional powers in the AFC are going to rule the day again. I would Lee Corso, not so fast, my friend. And I think that's how significant the additions of A.J. Brown and Jalen Waddle are, with everything else that New England and Denver already have going for them. I think the Broncos certainly have a much better chance with Jalen Waddle to hang on to the AFC West than they were if they just said, you know what, Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, the group we got, it's good enough. Same with New England. Right? If they said, well, we were in the Super Bowl, why change things up? We're a younger team, got another year of experience. Drake May's going to be better. Nope. Don't leave that stuff to chance. So I really like what both Denver and New England did. Their job is going to be more difficult, though. Now, one of the teams I'm talking about is not going to be there. Something will happen. I'm not going to say for what team, and I'm not going to say who, because I don't want to put that stuff into the universe. We know that the AFC won't have Denver, New England, Buffalo, Kansas City, Baltimore, Cincinnati. I promise you one of those teams is not going to be as good as I think they are, or as the general consensus think they are. Of course, injury can play a role in that. But with everybody healthy right now, on June 1st, I think New England and Denver have put themselves in a position to be able to battle with the inevitable bounce backs of Cincinnati, Baltimore, and Kansas City than they would have been if they just would have went, well, we had a very good season. Bo Nix got hurt, or else we would have been in the Super Bowl. We were in the Super Bowl if we were New England. We're New England. We were in the Super Bowl. Kudos to both of those organizations. And that's a recurring theme throughout this show today. Like, you want to win a title, go out and get one. Don't just rely on the normal passage of time, paying dues, all that kind of stuff. Denver and especially New England and Seattle even, right? Mike McDonald, brilliant mind. A lot of people liked him. But was it too early? Would other organizations have said, you know what, not right now, maybe in a couple years? Got to see a little bit more of him. Seattle went, nope, that's our guy. We're going to make him one of the youngest head coaches in the NFL, and then in 2 years, he's going to win us the Super Bowl. Fortune is favoring the bold right now in sports, and slow and steady, and we're supposed to do this at this time, but that's not right now. That stuff's kind of out the window. Go get Myles Garrett. Go get A.J. Brown. Go get Jalen Waddle. Fire your coach if you have to. Go get it. 719-247-1313. Your thoughts on the two blockbuster NFL trades, A.J. Brown to New England, Myles Garrett to the Rams. Also, we have NBA Finals and Stanley Cup final matchup set. It'll be Vegas, Carolina in hockey, San Antonio in New York in the NBA. And because it will be either San Antonio or New York, a recent NBA trend will continue. Is it truly what's best for the league? That's next here on 740 KVOR and Extra Sports 1300. Switchbacks FC back at Widener Field Saturday night for their third match of the USL Cup group stage against El Paso Locomotive. The first fans through the gates at 6 will get a Switchbacks hat courtesy of Widener Apartment Homes. Kickoff is at 7. Fireworks after the match. Get your tickets at switchbacksfc.com. Tom on the text line regarding A.J. Brown, one of 2 blockbuster deals consummated today in the National Football League, says, watch out for them Pats. First time they've had a real wide receiver 1 since Randy Moss. And don't give me Edelman. Brady made him into a number 1 wide receiver. I am not going to give you Edelman, Tom, because at no point during Julian Edelman's highly decorated and maybe even Hall of Fame career, did I look at him as a number 1 wide receiver. So I think you're 100% spot on. Now, do I think A.J. Brown will have the same impact Randy Moss did? No, I don't. But there's somewhere less than that is pretty exciting if you're a New England Patriots fan. It changes a lot for this New England team. And Drake May has got to be the guy that's most ecstatic, at least for now. If there's one other thing I can throw in to say, just put Jalen Waddle in the addition of him by the Broncos, little bit over A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown does have a history of getting a little disgruntled with his quarterbacks, and it wasn't just a Philadelphia thing. So, again, I fully acknowledge I'm splitting hairs because I think if you're the New England Patriots, you absolutely get A.J. Brown, and if you're the Denver Broncos, you absolutely get Jalen Waddle, and I think both teams are extremely happy. I think maybe A.J. Brown's previous history is maybe why the Broncos were like, yeah, I don't think we need him. Plus, A.J. Brown with Cortland Sutton, it accomplishes now we have a true wide receiver 1 and a true wide receiver 2, but also look at their body types, look at what they do on the football field. Jalen Waddle, and I think this is part of why I say it's just a little bit better of a fit with Jalen Waddle in Denver, because his skill set is, I think, complementary of Cortland Sutton, whereas A.J. Brown is a little bit, I don't want to say redundant because you take both of them, but you get what I'm saying. But for New England, they needed this kind of a guy. It was an obvious move to make, same as the Denver Broncos, go out and get a number 1 wide receiver. And they did. And the one thing you could say about A.J. Brown, as opposed to Jalen Waddle, you do have a longer track record of success. Like A.J. Brown has been wide receiver 1 for a while. So you could nitpick, but that's all you're doing. You're nitpicking. These are home run additions to mix metaphors with the sport. These are great additions for both New England and Denver in a time where you expect the traditional powers in the AFC to come back with a vengeance. You can hold your ground a little bit better this upcoming season. Moving to the NBA now, I heard Dan Patrick talking about this at the end of the first hour in his Above the Noise commentary, how the NBA has competitive balance down. And I continue to ask, as now we are going to be 8 years with 8 different champions, not even the same team popping up 2 or 3 years later. What we are seeing is unprecedented. We have never seen this since the ABA and the NBA merged, and since the Flint Tropics Mega Bowl. We have not seen a stretch of 8 different teams winning titles over an 8-year span. Never seen it. I still question if it's ultimately the best thing. because it is a sport that's popularity has largely been based in dynasties. The Celtics, the Lakers, the Miami Heat, the LeBron dynasty, if you want to call it that. Lakers again, Spurs, Miami. I already said Miami, Golden State. Maybe I said them already, but you get my point. We usually get a dynasty every few years. And I'm not saying you have to like all of those teams. In fact, you probably hate all of those teams unless you root for them. But they served a very important purpose. Whether they were, scratching our itch to watch greatness on display, and dynasties are greatness. These are great teams, historic teams. And we crave that as sports fans, I think. You may not like that it's the Lakers that are the dynasty, but you understand that they serve an important function within a sport like basketball. And it was also, coming back to the television show and knowing who the characters are. Right? That's part of why we watch what we watch. The familiarity to be able to tune in like, yeah, I know this guy, I know this guy. Now you're having to learn on the fly. You probably knew Victor Wembanyama. But how much you know about Steph Castle or Dylan Harper? How much did you know about the players that Oklahoma City had before they won a title? And then you just got to know them. You didn't probably like them, but you figured out who they were and what they were all about. And then now they're gone. Now they're done. I don't know. It's certainly a brave new world in the NBA. And part of me says it can't go on much longer like this. Somebody's got to pop back up again. But I think there are 3 teams right now that you could say are capable. And I'll tell you what, whoever wins, here's my guarantee. I haven't quite decided who I'm picking in the NBA Finals yet. I'm leaning San Antonio. But one thing I can say, I promise you, whoever wins is not going to repeat. Because we were so sure Oklahoma City was. And that was Dan Patrick's point. There was a time where the Nuggets are just going to keep going back. Boston's going to keep going back. I think the 3 teams will be, or 4 teams. The team that wins this year, certainly you got to at least give them and say it's possible. I don't think they will, but I guess it's possible. But then OKC, Denver, Boston. Okay, are 3 teams that you are best equipped over these last 7, soon to be 8 champions. You say those 3 teams have the ability to maybe go back and win another one and break this run of a new champion every year and different champions every year. But I think in order to do that, and I'll say this for all 3 teams, including Oklahoma City, if the trend right now is different, every year, different is winning. Even though you're going to have the same logo, the same jerseys, you got to be different. I think the trend right now in the NBA, and it's born out of the financial rules, the teams are treating this league like a hard salary cap league right now. Teams are just, you win a title and then you lose players. That's the way it's working right now. So it's either, are we going to be proactive and be different when we choose to be, or are we going to let the outside forces dictate that we're different? Right? Are we just going to allow the second apron to break up our team for us? Or are we going to be proactive and do something about it? I think Denver may be a little late to the party, to be fair, but I think last year they came to that realization and they made the Michael Porter move. They volunteered to be different than they were previously. And it didn't quite work the way they wanted it to. That's why I say more different. And I think Boston's looking at this. You know, Boston did kind of what Denver did. They dipped their toe in those waters a little bit, right? Porzingis is going to go. But they weren't different enough. Now the conversation is, are they going to keep Jaylen Brown? Are they going to keep Derek White? Like, bigger changes may be coming to the Boston Celtics this offseason. I'm saying that the Nuggets need to make bigger changes, even if it means they take a step back in order to take a bigger step forward. And I think OKC, you don't change fundamentally your roster after winning a title. Like, nobody's asking, San Antonio to win a title this year and trade Dylan Harper in the offseason. Okay, but once you try to go back and you don't make it, then you really got to assess where you're going and say, we need to make a move now rather than too late. And that's what you could argue with the Nuggets, that they made a right move, but did they make it too late? Was too much damage done with their roster? Or did that move not go far enough? Here's what I'm leading to with OKC. I've been saying it for a year, that the minute that Sam Presti has a wild hair to land Giannis Antetokounmpo, he could blow away every other offer that anyone can possibly make for him. The Thunder could essentially have Giannis whenever they want. These other teams, we got to wait for this contract to kick in, but this guy's we got to prove that he's a good enough player. Like, OKC doesn't have to do any of that. I'll give you the trade right now. You take 2 of your 3 first-round picks, by the way. OKC has 3 first-round picks. Take 2 of those as sweeteners, and you trade Chet Holmgren, who took all of 2 shots in Game 7, and Jalen Williams, J-Dub, as he's more known, not the other Jalen Williams, the main Jalen Williams. You take Chet and you take Jalen Williams plus a couple of first-rounders. You send them to Milwaukee. You got to take back Miles Turner in return to make the money work, and you get Giannis. Milwaukee gets 2 young players, 2 all-star young players, and they get Chet Holmgren when he doesn't have to go through Wemby. And you get 2 first-round picks in one of the deepest drafts we've had in years. That satisfies every requirement I have seen out there for the Milwaukee Bucks to part with Giannis. Chet, Jalen Williams, 2 first-round picks for Miles Turner, Giannis, and you pair SGA with Giannis, and you have one of the only 2 remedies to Victor Wembanyama that we know of in the NBA. There are only 2. It's Giannis's defense and Nikola Jokic's offense. That's it. Nobody else has a way to counter Victor Wembanyama. And OKC can have Giannis to defend Wemby. Plus, you'll keep a couple, be able to keep some of your blue-collar workers, if you will, like an Alex Caruso. He can stick around. And you still have A.J. Mitchell on a ridiculously low contract. And you also have multiple first-round picks in, I believe, the next 3 drafts. But are you just going to let these guys? They're already going to lose Hartenstein and Dort, or at least one of them. They can't keep them both. So their team's already going to be a little different for that reason. Now they could be proactive, and they could try to get Giannis and create the best duo in the NBA and put OKC as the obvious favorite to get out of the West next year. And maybe you could break this cycle of a new champion every year. Or you let Hartenstein and Dort go, but you say we still have this and we don't want to part with this. And then you just keep getting worse and worse and worse. Trust me, Boston can tell you, Denver can tell you, Toronto can tell you, Lakers can tell you. Like, under these financial rules, if you're not proactive and you don't make a significant change to make yourself different, but also to reset your timeline a little bit in terms of the second apron and your payroll, you're just going to keep getting worse. And then it's going to be too late, like I think it might be for the Denver Nuggets. Not that everyone's celebrating that OKC is now not in the NBA Finals, and now I'm bringing up the idea of pairing SGA with Giannis, but it was always out there that the Sam Presti could do this on a whim if he wants to, and I think the time is now. You gave it a run. Didn't work. Credit to the Spurs and Wemby. But now you got to make a move to go back at them. Because this waiting around, if we just run it back and we keep more of the same, but we're only losing this guy and we're still okay, all of that kind of talk, you're just going to be further and further behind. And you'll get to a point where, unless Nico Harrison is willing to give you Luka, that you're not really going to be able to open back up that window. Take your thoughts, 719-24-7. 13-13, and your thoughts on the NBA Finals matchup between San Antonio and New York. I do like it. I do very much like this matchup. I'm going to enjoy watching the NBA Finals. But if you got early thoughts on that, I'd love to hear them. 719-24-7, 13-13. PBR Space Cowboys, presented by the U.S. Space Force, will bring elite team bull riding and a live concert by Grammy award-winning superstar Tim McGraw to Falcon Stadium on June 20th. If you want to get your tickets, we got a link for you. Just look for the face of Tim McGraw on the front page of extrasports1300.com or kvor.com. If we don't hear from the Avalanche tomorrow, I will start getting a little, I'll start dabbling in some conspiracies here because thought it'd be the end of the week. And then, of course, the passing of Claude Lemieux, and not the time to, sit down and talk about, in the grand scheme of things, frivolous things like who the number one goalie is and if we're keeping our coach. I get that. But then the weekend goes by. It's now Monday. Nothing. The only thing coming from the Colorado Avalanche is that they signed this young Russian goaltender who may or may not factor into things next season for the Colorado Avalanche. Scott Wedgwood, a restricted free agent, but that's it. We don't hear from him tomorrow, and maybe it's been announced that they're going to speak tomorrow, but it's taking a little while. Last week, I understand it, but, game one of the Stanley Cup final is tomorrow night. They really going to, the ideal time would be to get it done before the Stanley Cup final starts, right? It feels like it's the, appropriate thing to do, looking out for the betterment of the league. All right, we'll get our stuff done, before, and then everybody, all hockey fans, no matter what team you root for, can focus in on the Stanley Cup final. The longer this week the Avalanche wait, the more I think there is something significant that they are waiting on, the making sure all their ducks are in a row and know what they're going to say. If this was same, Bednar's coming back, get off his ass like John Tortorella told us all to after game 4. If this is, we're running it back, no major changes, then why wait? And I know Arsenal was just in the Champions League final, but it's not like Josh Kroenke is normally a part of the Avalanche postseason press conference. We all know the dynamics within the Kroenke Sports empire. It's Joe Sakic and it's Chris McFarland. Okay, plus, think Josh was taking a red eye back from the Champions League final. If it's not tomorrow, then, and it could be a couple of different things. It's not going to be any player is getting moved. You're not announcing, you're trading Cale Makar. Like, that's not going to happen. But remember, it's not just Bednar. Like, that's the question everybody's asking. But don't forget that Nashville was sniffing around Chris McFarland recently. Could we have another Tim Connolly situation going on with the Colorado Avalanche, that a team comes in a little desperate, willing to go a little bit higher than Kroenke-owned teams are willing to go when it comes to coaches and executives, and could Chris McFarland be on his way out? I don't know which one it is. I'm just saying it's not, doesn't just have to be we're letting Jared Bednar go. It could be our general manager just got poached. But game 1 of the Stanley Cup final is tomorrow. It's tomorrow night. If the Avalanche aren't meeting with the media tomorrow, then something's up, I think. But we'll wait on that. I know it's hard to watch the team that eliminated your team playing for a title, but I actually, in a world where obviously the Colorado Avalanche being in against the Carolina Hurricanes, and that's the thing, I'm never going to get this. I'm going to go to my grave, and on my tombstone, they're going to write, he never got the Avalanche Hurricanes matchup in the Stanley Cup final they so desperately wanted. I have wanted the Avs to play the Canes in the Stanley Cup final for years now, because I just think it's such a fascinating contrast in what they want to do. Jared Bednar and Rod Brindamore have long been two of the better coaches in the league. I've wanted to see Canes Avs forever. And I get Canes, don't get Avs. Get Avs a few years ago, no Canes. I just think it would be such a fascinating and entertaining 7-game series. And it's the type that you only get because you have the contrasting styles. You have a team in Colorado, which I know recent events will make you question whether they can impose their will on teams at the highest level in the playoffs, like Vegas, Carolina, etc. But the Avalanche trying to open things up and trying to create time and space and fly around, and Carolina trying to take that away from them, that's what makes it fun. I'm interested because I'm such a hockey sycophant that you could put any two teams in the Stanley Cup final I'm watching. But I think two teams that really want to be defensive oriented, take away time and space, there are going to be some tough watches along the way. 4 games, 5 games, 6 games, however many it is. There are going to be a couple of games where like, oh man, this is a rock fight. In fact, that's what this Stanley Cup final should be called, rock fight. One team that likes to play that way, that's fine. That's contrasting styles. Styles make fights. I'm here for it. Two teams that like to play that way, I still think it will be a good, long, I think, compelling series, but there are going to be some games and there's some periods in this series where you're going to go, oh, gosh. If you didn't think you'd already missed the Colorado Avalanche watching the Stanley Cup final, wait till you see what these two teams are putting out on the ice. Rock fight, Hurricanes, Vegas drops the puck tomorrow night. But man, Carolina, I'll take, even with the deficiencies that maybe we saw with the Colorado Avalanche, Vegas sweeping through Colorado, far more impressive than Carolina beating Montreal in 5 games. We got to see how these two teams match up themselves. But in terms of which team's coming in as the more formidable of the two, I think you have to say Vegas for what they did against the Avs. What's driving the show is next. Hello there. Welcome in. Glad to have you, whether you're listening on Extra Sports 1300, 740 KVOR, or the streaming apps of those two fine radio stations, or you're watching anywhere you scroll. I certainly do appreciate your patronage. If you'd like to take your participation in today's show to the next level, up to you. But always love to hear from you. 719-247-1313. That is the phone or the text line that you can reach out via to comment on any of the day's topics. Or if you are watching the live stream of the show, as many of you are, and more every day, you could comment right there. Anyway, is good. Just reach out. Want to hear from you, especially about the three stories that are driving the show. All right, we start with a chilling thought for quarterbacks in the NFC West.
Aaron Rodgers coming into the AFC North.
What do I think about it?
Face him twice a year.
I think it's a good opportunity to put him in the graveyard.
That is the newest member of the LA Rams. Of course, Myles Garrett said that a couple of years ago, but still the mentality is the same, and Garrett is on his way to the NFC West. Look out Brock Purdy. Look out Sam Darnold, and especially look out Jacoby Brissett if you are indeed a member of the Cardinals next year. There's a little bit of question of that, I suppose. But Myles Garrett is taking his talents to L.A. A first-round pick and Jared Verse are going to the Cleveland Browns, and it does make a lot of sense from Cleveland's side of this. But I think the L.A. side of this is the important side. You take already a team in the Rams the last 2 years. They have been knocking on the door of the Super Bowl. They haven't made it to the NFC Championship each of the last 2 years. But the Rams, you could argue, have been the second best team in the NFL the last 2 years, right? Because their season was ended by Philly. Philly went and won the Super Bowl. Then their season was ended by Seattle. Seattle won the Super Bowl. The Rams have been right there. And that's in addition, obviously, to when they won a Super Bowl. They have been in this championship window, knocking on the door, and getting Myles Garrett allows them to potentially kick that door down. They were already, in my mind, the favorite to win the Super Bowl this year. Now they are a prohibitive favorite, and now you have to ask the question, not how do the Rams win a Super Bowl, it's how do they not? You have an embarrassment of riches on the offensive side. You have Matthew Stafford, who still has plenty of game left at the quarterback position. You already had a good defense that is now boasting the reigning defensive player of the year and the best defensive player in the league, whether he needs the award to tell you that or not. This is scary. Like they might be the only team in the league where I have to figure out how they don't. Everyone else in the NFL, you have to figure out how they do. Right? And that's not to say that the Rams are without other teams vying for it. I mean, Seattle can be really good again, but it's just how do they manage, the target on their back, being the Super Bowl champions, all that kind of stuff. New England teams don't tend to fare well after making the Super Bowl and losing, and you go on, so on and so forth, right? The Rams are now the only team in the league where the real conversation is how do they not win a Super Bowl, which is, by the way, in their stadium. This is a seismic move. And the biggest move of the NFL offseason made by the LA Rams, a team that tends to do this, right? They've done this a few times over the years, haven't they? Making these huge moves. By the way, making those huge moves with the blessing of Stan Kroenke. Let's localize this a little bit. Stan Kroenke has shown that if you are a team that has a legitimate chance, or you convince him that you have a legitimate chance to win, Stan Kroenke loves winning titles. He loves carrying trophies. I saw him the other day. He may have been no more proud. I don't know how much he knows soccer, but I think he understood the gravity of Arsenal winning the Premier League. I think he smiled bigger for that trophy than any of the other ones he's won. But Stan Kroenke loves winning titles. Okay, so if you tell him that you are close and he believes you, you can do whatever you want. Right? You want to trade draft capital? F them picks. You want to go into the tax in the NBA? Go right ahead. You want to trade franchise core players? Go for it. He will empower you to do those things and bankroll those moves if necessary. And the reason I bring that up is, one, obviously the Rams are that team. But two, keep that in the back of your mind when the Avalanche and the Nuggets wade into the offseason. And whether they seem as aggressive as the Rams are. Now, part of that could be because they don't have the assets to trade, right? I mean, the Nuggets basically have Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, and that's it. I mean, they have lesser things, like they have this year's first-round pick. They have an expiring Cam Johnson, but like really valuable pieces to offer. It's Jokic and Murray, and they've already said they're not trading one of them. Okay, but the Avalanche have some players that they can move around that would garner interest across the league. There are different ways to skin cat. I'm just saying Stan Kroenke usually, and I think it's more the Nuggets than the Avalanche right now that I'm focusing this on, because the conversation in LA is, holy crap, we just got Myles Garrett. And the conversation around the Denver Nuggets is they're just going to just lose players. Like they're just going, Peyton Watson's gone. Cam Johnson's going to get traded. It's about cutting costs. It's about getting under the repeater tax. In many ways, it's the opposite of what the Rams are doing. But I think that speaks to where Stan and by extension Josh feel like their teams are. If they have a chance to win, they'll push the chips to the middle. If they don't, then that's when you say, hey, you got to mind your budget a little bit better. I'm not paying repeater taxes. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. So just, especially with the Nuggets, especially with the Denver Nuggets, keep that in mind. But Myles Garrett to the Rams, holy cow, what a move. Hopefully they appreciate it out there in LA, what they have. I mean, think about this just real quick, and then we'll switch gears. Ohtani, Betts, Luka, LeBron, Stafford, Garrett. Now, some are bigger stars than others. I get it. But think of the collection of stars, but also the collection of talent. Matthew Stafford might be one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the league. Myles Garrett is the best defensive player in the league. Then Ohtani, Betts, LeBron, star, maybe not one of the top 5 players anymore, but still a big star. And then you have Luka. Stars, Hollywood. I feel like there's something there. But Myles Garrett going from Cleveland to the LA Rams. But that wasn't the only significant trade that happened today. Here's story number 2.
Hurts is back. Hurts has plenty of time. He's looking. He fires. He completes it. Touchdown! A.J. Brown!
WIP on the call. A.J. Brown, not a surprise. It was a matter of when, not if, A.J. Brown would be dealt. And it was pretty much going to be New England or nowhere. And that's where he ends up. A first-round pick also going to Philadelphia in the deal that lands New England the number 1 wide receiver that they, despite all their success, lacked last year. And I think with A.J. Brown and Jalen Waddle both changing places and going to New England and Denver, you have 2 teams that had great success this year, in part because the traditional powers in the AFC were down. They took advantage of it. Credit to them. They also immediately became 2 of the more prime regression candidates in the NFL because you expect Kansas City, Baltimore, Cincinnati, Buffalo to be better. But now getting the number 1 wide receivers, adding a dynamic to the offense that both of those teams lacked last year, despite all their success. Now it gives Denver and New England a chance to hang in there with those big boys. Yes, Joe Burrow might be healthy. Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore defense might play better with Jesse Minter as their head coach and not John Harbaugh. And the Kansas City Chiefs are certainly not going to be a 6-win football team next year. So you could say all of that. But I think with New England and Denver adding the one glaring thing that they were missing last year gives them an opportunity to say, no, we're still here. And we could still compete with you, even though you're a better version of yourself this year than the year prior, because New England and Denver are better. Now, not everybody can win 12, 13 games. So somebody is going to take a step back. And it could be New England and Denver finish with fewer wins. But in terms of competitiveness, in terms of the conversation of the hierarchy in the AFC, New England, by getting A.J. Brown, and Denver earlier this offseason by getting Jalen Waddle, give themselves a better chance to stay in that conversation than they would have if they would have just run it back and allowed Kansas City, Baltimore, and Cincinnati to all get right this offseason. And for New England, it puts everybody in their place and gives Drake May, still a young quarterback, even though he played at an MVP level, still young, gives him something that you should always give your young quarterback, which is a number 1 receiving target. Now, as long as Drake May, and I think for a while, the honeymoon period is going to be a while. Right? Drake May is a superior thrower of the football to Jalen Hurts. A.J. Brown is going to love playing with Drake May. But longer term, will A.J. Brown wear it as welcome in New England? I would say for 1 year, it's a pretty good bet that it's only going to be good things for New England. A.J. Brown going from Philly to New England, which in a way, I know that Philadelphia had very little choice in the matter. But think about what has happened in the NFC today. You have Myles Garrett going to the Rams. Already the favorite, maybe more of a prohibitive favorite now. And you get the Philadelphia Eagles trading their best wide receiver. One contender even more cements themselves as that. Another one, there's some questions. I get it. Philadelphia had to trade A.J. Brown. It was an untenable situation, but they're not better. They're not more talented without A.J. Brown. big moves happening in the NFC and the AFC for both New England and Cleveland as well. Let's go to the NBA for story number 3.
It's a lifetime chance. You know, you never know when it's going to happen again. But it's, the day we win it, speaking for myself, it's going to be an amazing day of like realization of a dream. It's hard to put into words. It's almost like the meaning of my life.
Think about that. The meaning of my life. More of the mindset of Victor Wembanyama on display this weekend as the San Antonio Spurs beat OKC in Game 7, 111-103. San Antonio is not supposed to be here this soon. All the unwritten rules of the NBA say you can't skip steps. You got to suffer playoff heartbreak before you can achieve ultimate playoff success. I'm telling you, the reason why San Antonio isn't following that is because of that guy. Not only as a player, but again, the mindset of Victor Wembanyama. This guy, I've said this before, like everything he's done, and he's young still, but like everything he's done in his life is to do this. Right? Think about what extracurricular activities you were doing when you were 17, 18, 19 years old. Think about what you would be doing with your off seasons if you were a multimillionaire like Victor Wembanyama. But every anecdote I've heard about his upbringing and everything I've seen from him since he's in the NBA, he's visiting with monks. He's picking the brain of some of the all-time greats like Hakeem Olajuwon. I mean, this guy is so singularly focused on being successful and winning titles. Like this is thrown around a lot, and a lot of players like to co-opt it. This is Mamba mentality. This is, I don't give a rip about any of the trappings of wealth and fame. I am here to win. And everything I do is going to be to try and win. And a lot of guys are committed to that, but not like this guy. And if you're on a team with Victor Wembanyama and he's visiting monks to get in the right mindset, and he's working with Hakeem Olajuwon, and he's doing all of these things, how can you, if you're Dylan Harper, have any excuse to be like, well, I just kind of want to have a typical rookie year where I put up some good numbers. We don't have a lot of success, but I just enjoy my first year because I got plenty of time to be like. Wemby creates the urgency. One, because of who he is as a leader, but two, because, my God, how can you squander even a year of this guy? I say, looking straight at the Denver Nuggets, how do you squander a single year of having a guy this special as an organization or as teammates? San Antonio is not supposed to be in the NBA Finals, but yet they are, and it starts with Wemby. And I think it's going to be a phenomenal NBA Finals matchup. Wemby on the MSG stage for 3 games. That's going to be awesome. And just the story of Wemby, whether he's going to New York or going to Charlotte, North Carolina, it's Wemby is becoming the face of this league. And he wants it. He wants to be the face of the league. And he wants to do it by winning. 719-247-1313. Your thoughts on the three stories that are driving the show. Coming up next, Russell Wilson has made a decision to football or to talk about football. That was the question. He has his decision, and I'll tell you what it is next. He's got ties. He's got socks. How about you give him a gift that really rocks this Father's Day? How about $5,000? Head to extrasports1300.com or kvor.com to enter our national Top Pop contest for a chance at $5,000 for your Top Pop. Sponsored locally by Papa Murphy's Pizza. We make it, you bake it. So Russell Wilson was deciding between whether he wanted to be the backup quarterback of the New York Jets or go into television. And today he has made that decision, and he will replace Matt Ryan on the NFL on CBS set. And I think it's ultimately the right move for Russell Wilson, and probably for a number of reasons, some that I'm not aware of because I'm not in Russell's family. So I don't know, but I got to imagine that the hours and everything like that might be a little bit better for family purposes. But I'll speak to what I know, which is his football legacy, and say, just go. Just go. Take the TV job. Go be great at that. You have enough personality. You just... what I'm curious about, and I guess NFL on CBS is not one of those shows that, is going to destroy NFL players, right? Like Russell Wilson's not getting a podcast. He's not going on First Take. Like, this is a pretty light TV job. Just a lot of analyzing the game, which I think Russell Wilson can absolutely do. But he needs to, he would be best suited to just not sully his career in his Hall of Fame candidacy any more than he already has. It will go down as one of the bigger mistakes in NFL history was Russell Wilson wanting to leave Seattle and the Denver Broncos choosing to get him from Seattle. And from that point on, everything Russell Wilson did detracted from what he did in Seattle. Everything. He has not put out one positive thing in the second act of his NFL career. He has been a punchline. He has been a mediocre quarterback. And I legitimately believe if I were a voter, he has played himself out of the Hall of Fame. But I am one that notoriously has high standards for quarterbacks because I say there's got to be one position where we don't let everybody in. I feel like quarterback should be that one. I think Russell Wilson has played himself out of the Hall of Fame. And you say, well, that's not, Dan Patrick always does this thing where he says, what if Stafford and Russell Wilson's careers went in reverse? Matthew Stafford started with the Rams and then went to the Lions, and Russell Wilson started with the Broncos and the Steelers and then finally caught on with Seattle, much like, I don't know, a Sam Darnold type story. And then had the career at. Okay. Fair enough. It's an interesting thought exercise, but last time I checked, the ending of a movie matters. The ending of a movie does affect how we view it and whether we will say that this movie should win an Oscar or it's one of our favorite movies, or you're going to give it whatever unit of measurement you give on Letterboxd and IMDb. It matters how you end things. And we talk about quarterbacks like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning and Matthew Stafford, obviously, that have successful second acts to their career. and strengthen already a decent Hall of Fame case. And Russell Wilson, half of his career, like Matthew Stafford, you could still argue because of the numbers he put up, not the success of the team, I grant you, and probably if he stays in Detroit, he doesn't become, I'm probably saying he shouldn't be a Hall of Famer. But he put himself in the conversation with the numbers, right? We've always looked at Matthew Stafford as one of the more talented quarterbacks in the league. He just didn't win enough. With Russell Wilson, it's hard to unsee all of this. He was just so far removed and gone from what he was in Seattle at any point that you start to wonder who made who, right? I know Richard Sherman has an opinion on the subject, but you wonder that because he goes to Denver with Sean Payton, and okay, you're going to say Sean Payton didn't want him, but why didn't he want him? And did Russell Wilson do anything to ensure that Sean Payton would change his mind? Russell Wilson probably still got out too late, but better late than even later. Because right now, I think Russell Wilson gets voted into the Hall of Fame. I will disagree. I've also disagreed with Eli Manning getting into the Hall of Fame. But I think he does get in. If he were to go another year or two and it would just be the same, more jokes, more punchlines, more mediocre quarterback play, I think there would be a lot more Hall of Fame voters who would be like, yeah, you know what? I think he did play himself out of the Hall of Fame. So get out now. Go be, and this is also very good for him in terms of his Hall of Fame candidacy. Being on TV, right? These athletes, you stay relevant, you stay in the public eye, people know you, and when it's time for you to be, voted into the Hall of Fame, people are like, oh, I remember that guy. So you see this all the time with the NFL or the Pro Football Hall of Fame voting, excuse me. You see guys slip through the cracks. Steve Atwater was a player here locally that slipped through the cracks. Randy Gradishar, even a more egregious example because of how long he was out, he didn't get voted in. Guys can slip through the cracks, and a big reason why is because they're not in the public eye. They're not on the top of the minds of voters. And if Russell Wilson can go from, trending in a Hall of Fame direction with the Seattle Seahawks and then makes a very bad career move and just everything after that was just bad. But he can come back and be a good television analyst. And likability matters here. A more likable figure than I think he was in Denver. And to a degree in Pittsburgh, I think that can help him. So this is a good move. And I think he could be good at it too. I don't think that this is, Matt Ryan wasn't anything phenomenal. So I think Russell Wilson could be as good, if not better, than Matt Ryan was. So good career move, but in terms of the Hall of Fame, I think strategic in nature, but also good strategy. Endear yourself to people. Start to, wipe away a lot of what happened in Denver and Pittsburgh and make people remember more the Seattle days. And you can bring up a lot of stories about when you were in Seattle and you did this. It's all very intentional. Russell Wilson is not the first professional athlete to do this. So I think it's a good move. Also, it was too late, or I shouldn't say too late. He should have made this move earlier. I don't think it's too late for him to go in the Hall of Fame because I think a fair amount of people will put him in already, and him being on television is certainly going to help. 719-247-1313. This coming in from Dave. At least it's not Bobby Bonilla Day anymore in Denver. That's right. Russell Wilson. Now, is this because he doesn't get any more money from the Broncos? Is that what this all is about? Because it's a little coincidental, don't you think? That Russ stops getting paid by the Denver Broncos and then he goes into television, unofficially retires. Once he got that last check from signed by Greg Penner, who's like, okay, I think time to find a new source of income. Now, Bobby, I would say it's the Broncos version of Bobby Bonilla Day, but let's also a good history lesson for everybody. Russell Wilson is not close to Bobby Bonilla Day. It's the closest thing the Broncos have to Bobby Bonilla Day, but Bobby Bonilla Day is the GOAT of whatever Bobby Bonilla Day is. Great organizational shame. Where Bobby Bonilla every year is cashes another check from the New York Mets. Everybody's happy, though. Like, to your point, Dave, like, everybody's happy now. Broncos are happy. Not only do they have Bo Nix, but they also are rid of his Russell Wilson's money. All gone. No more dead cap. Russell Wilson is happy because he has found gainful employment in a place that's going to help him cement his Hall of Fame candidacy. And the Seahawks are the happiest of all because they fleeced the Denver Broncos, and a few years later they won a Super Bowl. So everybody is happy. 719-247-1313. Back after this. The NBA and Stanley Cup final are now set. Stanley Cup final begins tomorrow night between the Hurricanes and the Golden Knights. And then on Wednesday, it will be game one, Spurs and Knicks. We will have our 8th different champion in as many years. Has never happened. I went back and checked online. I think there was like a 7-year run right around the merger. But that was when you were bringing in another league and you were melding them together, and there were good teams from the ABA and the NBA, and this is wild. So we know that the winner of this NBA Finals will not win next year, so we can already start to predict who will win next year's NBA Finals, because we know it will not be the winner of this one, because that's not the way it works anymore in the NBA. I got to give Shai Gilgeous-Alexander his credit here. Because there was something that Giannis said a few years ago that just bothered me. And it points to all the conversations we've had about the Nuggets and the Avalanche in recent weeks. And the thing that Giannis said was the season's not a failure. It's all steps to success. It's like, okay, kudos to your sports psychologist for giving you that line that you could regurgitate to the media, but like, be honest with us. And Shai, however many years later, sat down after his team lost in Game 7 and said the season was a failure for him. Like, it's okay. Like, they think that it must be some like sports psychologist, marriage counselor type voodoo that they do, that you can't like acknowledge something really bad. Like, you can't say the word failure or else you're going to fail. No, you could say it about something, and also failing could be motivating. If you just think that, oh, that's not failure. That's not failure. I'm not failing at all. Well, couldn't I argue that that causes you to not work quite as hard than if you realize that you failed? So I appreciate what Shai said, because it was a failure. They lost to a team that had no playoff experience. They had Game 7 at home. They had to be just as sure that they were going to repeat as most people were outside of the Thunder organization that thought they were going to repeat. Next year, they're going to look different because Dort and Case and Wallace and Hartenstein, all these guys are going to be free agents. Like they had last year and this year, and then it would be very murky moving forward for the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I think Shai is acknowledging that. He's not saying, we're all bums and we stink and we shouldn't have jobs, but there was a goal in place, a very attainable goal in place. They failed to get it, so then it's a failure. So I appreciate the candor of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Because when you are championship or bust, if you do not win a championship and you bust, that is a failure. It just is. It doesn't mean, it's not an indictment of you for the rest of your life. In fact, we tend to marvel and hold up the people who can fail and then be successful right away after it. So I don't know who says you can't admit failure or acknowledge that a season was a failure without. He didn't throw anybody under the bus. He didn't say, even though you probably wanted him to say Chet Holmgren only took 2 shots and AJ Mitchell and Jalen Williams were hurt. Like, what am I supposed to do? We didn't fail. All of these other things happened. Those are excuses. Own it. They were expecting to go to the NBA Finals and probably win it, and they didn't. And that means that the season was a failure. Doesn't mean there's not good stuff along the way. So I appreciate that from Shea. Now they need to go get Giannis. Chet and Jalen Williams plus a couple of firsts for Miles Turner, Giannis, who says no. And normally when I say who says no, I know that there will be a team that says no. Legitimately, who says no? You got to take Miles Turner back, but you might have a dearth of big men anyway because Hartenstein's a free agent and you would be trading Chet in the deal. So you probably need a big body in Miles Turner coming back, but you have to take him back because to make the salaries work, you get Giannis. And you're giving up, it's like Scrooge McDuck throwing a couple of shekels at somebody on the street. Like Sam Presti can spare the draft picks and aren't part of what the utility of draft picks to parlay them into a ready-made difference maker for your team. So you give up 2 picks. You got 3 in the first round, by the way. You got 1 plus a swap next year. I think you have 3 the year after. Like, you have a chance at multiple draft picks each of the next 3 to 5 years. You don't need that many draft picks. You don't, because you're going to come across a draft that isn't very good and you're going to be stuck with 2 or 3 first round picks and you're like, this is worthless. So you get Giannis, you give up draft capital that you have plenty of, you give up a guy in Chet Holmgren who is apparently has some kind of thing with Victor Wembanyama that he's maybe never going to be able to get over on him. But it's not even about saying what's wrong with Chet and Jalen Williams. It's just that's the catalyst. You lost to the San Antonio Spurs, and it just so happens that one of the few guys that can guard him, if only guys that can guard him in the league, is kind of available via trade. It just happens to be one of the 5 best players in the world. You bring him in at the time when Chet's, I think value is still good because Milwaukee could be like, hey, we don't have Wemby in our conference. Chet will do just fine. Milwaukee gets 2 All-Stars and 2 draft picks. OKC changes their team fundamentally, makes the best duo in our league, and gives them a chance to get right back to the NBA Finals next year. Legitimately, who says no? If anybody would say no, I think the Bucks would do it in a heartbeat. You're not getting better. What, you're going to call Pat Riley and go, yeah, we'll take Tyler Hero and Khalil Ware and that tired and repeated trade thing that Miami Heat fans are so deluded into thinking that their players have any value on the open market. Bam is the only one that does. So if you're not willing to include Bam, they've been trying to trade Tyler Hero for 5 years now, it seems like. Nobody wants him. Or nobody wants his contract. Like, that's the best I've seen is Miami's, pick and Miami's stuff. And Miami has going to offer up draft picks as well. Well, how crappy do you think those picks are going to be? Thunder aren't giving you their picks. They're giving you Utah's and Philadelphia's and Washington's. The trade that I propose is far superior to anything anyone else in the league can offer. Milwaukee would say yes in a heartbeat. Milwaukee might even initiate the conversation. The only thing I could think that would hold it up is if Sam Presti is just so set in his ways that he's like, no, this is the way I'm doing it. I want to keep this draft capital forever. I want to keep the league, keep a stranglehold on the league where I have everyone's picks. And I'm just going to keep reloading because they're not my picks. They're other people's picks. One flaw in Calvin Booth's logic all those years ago was the fact that he had the Nuggets picks. And when they kept being good, it meant that their draft picks were bad. I think that's the only thing that would hold it up. So we'll see. Let's get through the NBA Finals first. Like I said, it's going to be a great matchup. It's going to be a lot of fun, this series. And I fondly remember 1999. A day long before the Nuggets were, you just had to, you had to enjoy, if you enjoy basketball, you just had to do it through other teams because the Nuggets were the Nuggets. But that 1999 series with Larry Johnson, the hitting the three, and yeah, that was a fun series. And this one has the chance to be too. Appreciate your patronage and the interaction today. And yeah, we'll see. Avalanche, you're on the clock. You gonna speak up? What's going on with Jared Bednar and your organization? We'll see if that comes to fruition tomorrow. And we'll see who else gets traded in the NFL. We got Myles Garrett and A.J. Brown. Who's next? Have a good night. We'll talk tomorrow at 3 on KVOR and Extra Sports 1300.